I have already watched Inside Out 2, a movie that everyone is super hyped about but also a bit wary of, especially after that series of Pixar films that most people didn't enjoy as much. But is this sequel worth it? Is it worth your ticket and the 9-year wait since the first film? Well, I've watched it, and in this video, I'm going to give my opinion without spoilers, so relax and turn up your volume. You are on Cine Lovers, your channel for cinema, movies, and animations. The first Inside Out premiered back in 2015 and was a novelty at the time. I remember when I watched it, I thought Pixar's idea was brilliant, with the story taking place inside Riley's mind. It was another hit for Pixar, from 1995 with Toy Story 1 to 2018 with Coco. It was just one successful film after another. Even in 2019, with Toy Story 4, which I consider the worst Pixar film to date, it was a box office hit. But after that, in 2020, things started to get more challenging for Pixar. That golden age of the studio's animations took a break, and I think practically everyone who loves Pixar felt these changes. I'm actually planning to make a video explaining all of this, the entire Pixar crisis, so after I post it, a card will appear here for you to click on. Then they said they weren't going to make any more sequels, later realized it was a mistake to say that, and then went back on it as if nothing had happened, announcing Inside Out 2 and Toy Story 5. And that made us very happy, right? But at the same time, there was some hesitation because the first Inside Out is amazing. Can they tell another chapter of this story, or will they ruin the franchise for good? After the disappointment of Kung Fu Panda 4, everyone was even more apprehensive about what might come with Inside Out 2. And if they're going to revive a franchise that has been on hold for 9 years, then at the very least, they needed to have a good idea and a good script. Otherwise, it would be better to leave it as it was. And to be honest, Pixar pulled it off. I had the honor of being invited by Disney and Pixar to see the film before its release. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I was not disappointed. On the contrary, there's a scene towards the end of the movie that made me cry. It was very emotional, and it had been a while since a Pixar movie made me cry. I won't say what scene it is, but when the session ended, I talked to some fellow YouTubers, critics, and influencers who were there, and all of them got emotional at the same scene. It was powerful. You know what that means? That our Pixar is back. The Pixar that told very touching and emotional stories is back. For me, Inside Out 2 is the light at the end of the tunnel that Pixar was looking for. Because from 2020 to 2023, it was just tension at the studio, starting with Onward, which is a very good movie but premiered right when the cinemas closed due to the pandemic, causing a huge loss for Disney. Then, there were 3 movies released directly on Disney Plus that didn't perform as well as they could have in theaters. After that, there was Lightyear and Elemental, which most people didn't like and didn't make much money. Now comes Inside Out 2, which is already a success. So for me, this film has everything to become Pixar's highest-grossing film to date. I have no doubt it will surpass the $859 million that the first one made at the box office in 2015. I really liked how the new emotions were portrayed, especially anxiety. Her personality, her actions, everything she did. You could tell Pixar studied the human mind a lot. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. It's free, and I'll bring many videos about Inside Out 2 to the channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything. And you know what's interesting and very good too? My hype and expectations for Inside Out 2 were very high, just like for Kung Fu Panda 4. And Kung Fu Panda 4 was disappointing, right? But Inside Out 2, even with the high hype, left me very satisfied. There were 1 or 2 things I didn't like as much. I'll talk about those in a bit. But overall it met my expectations. And that scene near the end of the movie, it was just too much. I think even when I watch it a second time, I will still get emotional, even knowing what will happen. In this second film, Riley is already a teenager, and like everyone, she goes through a new phase in life, puberty, new thoughts, new ideas. With all these changes, there's chaos in her mind, and the control panel is completely reformulated. Anxiety, ennui, embarrassment, and envy arrive and kick the 5 basic emotions out of the control panel. This isn't a spoiler because it's in the trailer. The best part of the movie is the learning each emotion experiences, some more than others, but it's a film full of lessons. These are not boring lessons that get a bit tiresome. Pixar managed to show them in a very good way. As I said, you watch Inside Out 2 and think, this is Pixar in its golden years, and it's so good to see the studio back at this level. Better than all of this is your like on this video. Besides all that, Pixar maintained the extremely high quality of the animation with incredibly beautiful and colorful graphics. You can see the texture of the characters' clothes, the strands of hair, the smoothness of the movements, everything is very perfect. They've always excelled in this aspect, thankfully. Can you imagine an Inside Out 2 with the graphics of Megamind 2? One detail I didn't like much was that some events happened too quickly. They could have worked on those scenes better, with more care. It seemed very rushed. In those specific scenes, I felt like they wanted to quickly tell that part to move on to the next scene, and this happened a few times. There is a post-credit scene, so stay until the end because it's worth it. Nowadays, almost every movie has a post-credit scene, so don't leave the cinema early, or you'll end up missing it. Inside Out 2 is definitely worth it. It's worth your ticket, and it's worth your time, and I'm very curious to know what you think of the movie. So, let me know in the comments what you thought of Inside Out 2. Now, to get into the movie's mood, I've picked out 21 secrets you didn't notice in the trailers and released scenes of Inside Out 2. And here's another amazing video about the most anticipated sequel of the year. Thank you so much for getting this far, and I'll see you in the next Cine Lovers.